Good morning, Pokemon trainers. We are here at the Regional Championships in Cologne, Germany. Very, very exciting. I'm Loïc Gilard, joined for the first time on the desk by Ben Kyriakou. How are you feeling, Ben?
I'm feeling really good. I'm really excited. This is our last regional event in Ultra Series before the new games come out, so it's really exciting. And we're here at one of the biggest European regionals that we've ever actually had. So yeah, this is amazing. Can't wait.
Lots of records being broken across the place, and I believe it's the last European regional in sort of Europe for the Ultra Series format as well. So
exactly.
We've been following that for quite a while, particularly off the back of the World Championships earlier in DC, and now we're going to be able to see what changes have been made to the current format. And we won't be keeping you long, because we have got a game ready and waiting. It's going to be Flavio del Pidio versus Loïc from France. So it's going to be a really exciting game to kick it off from game one, as we all know who Flavio is.
Well, absolutely. We've seen him at the top in various stages of competition, so going to be good to see what he's bringing to this tournament. Maybe a good indication of maybe what we see in the top 8 tomorrow, maybe top 16 if we have enough players for that. So really good first match to kick us off for this tournament.
Yeah, and we just need to get an okay from our tech team that we're ready to go. The judge is going to give them the okay to start the game, and we'll be able to jump into round one here in Cologne, Germany. So I'm very excited to see this game. You see the handshake there from the players, and the teams are up on the screen for you guys. On the left-hand side on Flavio's team, you have got the Xerneas, Rayquaza, Amoonguss, Incineroar, Nihilego, and Tapu Fini. That Nihilego won him the European International Championship back in Berlin earlier in the year. And Loïc has got on his team Incineroar, Ditto, Xerneas, Rayquaza, Tapu Fini, and the Whimsicott. Love seeing that Ditto on there.
Yeah, absolutely. Going to make the matchup really interesting, because what's better than two Ubers? Having three.
Exactly.
So we see Flavio here running what looks like the same team that he ran to win the European International Championships earlier this year, against Loïc running pretty much exactly the same Uber pairing. So going to be interesting to see how that matches up against each other and what the supporting cast bring to this game, especially in that Ditto that you mentioned earlier, Lou, and the Whimsicott, bringing out all of those potential prankster abilities and doing things before anyone else moves. So lots of speed control going on here as well. You've got Tapu Fini maybe carrying that Icy Wind, or Whimsicott with that Tailwind potential. So lots of different things going to happen here, and both of these teams really going to be trying to set up their Xerneas and knock through the opponent's team really quickly as we go into this round one. So let's see how they've led up in this first game of the tournament.
Yeah, jumping straight into it, and I'm very excited to see what that Whimsicott's going to get up to. We've seen it use Tailwind with Pranksters so many times just to get the advantage, and that's something that Flavio does have to take into consideration, and how he's going to play around that speed control. Like you said, Ben, if he does have Icy Wind on Tapu Fini, that can help negate some of it. But you've got to set that up and make sure that you get the moves off. But Tapu Fini and Incineroar out on the field for Flavio, whereas Loïc has gone for the Xerneas and the Incineroar of his own. So two cats here on the field, and it looks like Loïc will be wanting to set up that Xerneas as quickly as possible, but you've got to watch out for Tapu Fini.
Well, absolutely. Tapu Fini known for having that haze move. So if Loïc wants to set up that Geomancy, he's going to have to be quite concerned about whether that Tapu Fini is going to be able to negate that. Maybe if he decides to just start the game off, maybe a Dazzling Gleam, a Moonblast, get some chip damage, maybe later in the game suppress that Tapu Fini and come back in for Geomancy and just start maybe making some big holes in Flavio's team. But Flavio deciding to start things off slow, bringing that Incineroar and Tapu Fini. They're known for disrupting the flow of a game. They set up maybe Light Screen from Flavio's side to suppress that Xerneas and you know, turn those one-hit KOs into two-hit KOs, and that's really big, as we see Incineroar on Flavio's side, on Loïc's side of the field. Going for that fake out turn one. Yeah,
it's a fake out from one Incineroar into another. Flavio taking a little bit of extra damage from the little cheeky critical hit there, as the Xerneas on Loïc's side is allowed to get up that Geomancy, boosting its special attack, special defense, and speed by 2 stages. But if this Tapu Fini has gone for something like Haze, then it will all have been in vain. I'll have to brush up on my Italian just a little bit, as Tapu Fini does go for Light Screen, I believe that was. Good call there, Ben.
Absolutely, Light Screen coming up. So, you know, Loïc's in a great position. He's got that Xerneas Geomancy. That's what we want to see in every game that you bring a Xerneas to. Getting that Geomancy and having full HP at the end of the turn. But Flavio, really clever play there, setting up that Light Screen, saying, do you know what? unless you have a critical hit here, I'm going to be able to take all of your Xerneas attacks and maybe do something, maybe hit off with a Nature's Madness or an Icy Wind, start getting that speed control so that if Flavio has brought that Rayquaza, he can hit it with a big Dragon Ascent later in the game.
And Xerneas is not hanging around, goes for a powerful Moonblast, but this bulky Incineroar, even eating its berry here to regain its HP, is able to take that nice and easy as Tapu Fini goes for a Haze. So Tapu Fini is going to negate that. So Xerneas only able to get off that one powerful Moonblast, but didn't actually take too much damage out onto the field. Low kick coming out from the opposing Incineroar there into the Incineroar of Flavio, which goes for a U-turn, just wants to get off the field. I mean, if I was that Incineroar, I've just been targeted by the opposing one. I think I want to take a break.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't normally see low kick coming out from Incineroar, so nice tech on Loïc's side there, doing quite a lot of damage, and even with that light screen, the berry recovery, and then the low kick, that Incineroar's not going to be able to switch in like it normally does later in the game. But we see the Nihilego coming in here, and that Haze coming out to, take away all of those boosts on the Xerneas, bring in the Nihilego, and really pressure now with powerful poison-type attacks and even powerful rock-type attacks on that Incineroar. So great positioning from Flavio there. Going to be interesting to see if Loïc can pull himself back and regain that advantage that he's taken on turn one later this game as he switches into his Rayquaza.
Yeah, Rayquaza, another restricted joining the field. Going to negate any weather, but there is none on the field at the moment as Xerneas does go for Protect. Loïc does really have to rethink his strategy at this point as the Xerneas did get its boost up. It's lost it now, so it needs to think about what it wants to do next. But Nihilego going for that Rockium Z activation, and it's going to be that Continental Crush, a move that we saw Flavio use to great effect to win Berlin earlier in the year. What a great Pokemon.
Yeah, and we talked about powerful rock moves, and that's about as powerful as you get. Into the Rayquaza on the switch-in. Fantastic play from Flavio there. He's really capitalized on that turn, and maybe Loïc there showing off the item. We see doesn't have that strong winds in play, but still taking a really huge amount of damage there from the Continental Crush from Nihilego, and Icy Wind coming out from Tapu Fini, wanting to keep that advantage just in case Loïc switches.
I mean, Tapu Fini, the absolute star of the show there. That Rayquaza switching in took the huge damage from that Continental Crush, but then Tapu Fini able to pick up the KO with that Icy Wind. Both super effective moves, and as Delta Stream wasn't up, then there wasn't going to be any help there for Rayquaza.
Certainly not.
That little cheeky Whimsicott's on the field now. Do you think maybe Loïc's going to try and get that Tailwind up, try and get some advantage here?
Well, this is going to be a difficult position for Loïc. He's got two Fairy types and one's part Grass type against that Nihilego. Both of these Pokemon not known for being able to do a lot of damage unless they're doing some cheeky hidden power work there. But really good position for Flavio. He's positioned well. He's got his threats on the field, and he's negated all of Loïc's threats so far in this game. So going to be tough for Loïc, but maybe we can see him pull it back in these final turns.
Yes, exactly. That Nihilego and Tapu Fini going to take this Intimidate, but of course we don't have to worry too much about that being predominantly special attackers here. It is going to be a Tailwind from that Whimsicott, and switching on his Incineroar to be able to get the Fake Out advantage in the next turn could be critical for him here. Incineroar, though, first does have to take a Sludge Bomb from that Nihilego, and another Icy Wind here coming out. Going to break any potential Focus Sash on that opposing Whimsicott. Does a good chunk of damage as well, as Incineroar will also have a speed load. So even though the Tailwind's on that side, if he gets another Icy Wind off into both these Pokemon, then it's going to be a level field again.
Absolutely, and Loïc's done a really good thing here of identifying that Icy Wind, and he's bringing in his own Tailwind to make sure that he can at least maybe hit first and put some pressure back on Flavio's side of the field. But with that Incineroar in the back and two Fairies, it's going to be very difficult for him, as we said, to break through that Nihilego. The only chance we've got here maybe is if this Incineroar is now faster than the Nihilego, we can take a quick knockout, bring that Nihilego off the field, and then it turns into a bit more of an even game.
Yeah, that Nihilego definitely is applying a lot of pressures to Loïc's side with the Power Gem on there, which I'm assuming is going to be the Power Gem as we saw the Continental Crush. That can do huge amounts of damage to that Incineroar, but as well, if you've got Xerneas and Whimsicott there, both Fairy-type Pokemon don't want to be taking a Sludge Bomb either, and yes, it is Power Gem, but you never want to assume.
No, absolutely not. Probably the last chance Loïc had there for the rest of the game. We've got Icy Wind coming out from Fini here. That's going to keep the speed control on Flavio's side of the field, make sure that Loïc's Pokemon can never really go first. He has got that one-turn grace where he brings in the Xerneas, and he can just try and go for maybe a 2-turn Geomancy,
yes.
maybe another attack if he's got it on his team and got the option there. But otherwise, we're just going to see this Tailwind peter out next turn, or at the end of this turn, should I say, and that Nihilego with its special attack Beast Boost coming out, going to do a lot of damage to both of these Pokemon. As we see the forfeit, they're coming out from Loïc to end game 1.
Yes, I think that was the right decision as well there. You know, when you've got that boosted Nihilego on the field with such a powerful Sludge Bomb, it's just going to start going through your team, particularly as Xerneas did lose its Geomancy boost, so its special defense was back to sort of its neutral stance, as it were. But still, a tremendous game from both these players. I did love how Loïc at the beginning had such an advantage getting up that Geomancy, and then Flavio was just able to turn it around, and once again, utilized the Nihilego so masterfully.
Yeah, completely. I mean, it was really big having that Rayquaza on Loïc's side of the field come in and be knocked out in that turn. And I think if we're going into this game 2 now, I think, you know, we want to be, Loïc's going to be wanting to see how we can make better use of that Rayquaza, how we can actually pressure it. We know that Rayquaza is naturally, in its mega form, faster than Nihilego, and we've seen that the Nihilego doesn't have a focus sash, so maybe if it's carrying something like that Earth Power, we could see Loïc take much better advantage of the Rayquaza in this game 2. But you know, on Flavio's side of the field, he played it really well, played it really cleverly. Setting up that light screen first says, you know, it doesn't matter if you Geomancy or not. We've got some support in place that we can use for later in the game. And then, oh look, Geomancy came out turn 1, so here's the haze button. You know, we know where it is. It's it's the right time to bring it out. So clever play from Flavio there, making the best use of his resources going into the game. And obviously we saw that Continental Crush and Icy Wind going into the Rayquaza to pressure that Incineroar. So be good to see what Loïc decides to lead in this game. Maybe he decides to lead the Rayquaza and, you know, bring its pressure out earlier in the game instead of later. But we see Flavio leading exactly the same here.
Yeah, he certainly does. And that light screen from Tapu Fini previously did so well, taking that, helping Incineroar take the Moonblast previously as well. But it looks like it's going to be the same leads. Loïc sticking with that Xerneas Incineroar combination, as Flavio has got his Incineroar and Tapu Fini on the field. Now, I wonder if we're going to see something similar where Flavio wants to get the light screen up nice and early, and then that does kind of negate a potential Geomancy turn 1. But if I was Loïc, I'd probably want to play a little bit more conservatively with that Geomancy button.
Yeah, we've seen both games here. The Incineroar on Loïc's side of the field has gone first with Intimidate on Loïc's side of the field. So we see Loïc's Incineroar probably going to be faster than Flavio's, which may give us an indication of how this turn's going to play out. Maybe Loïc instead goes for that fake out onto the Tapu Fini, does a little bit of chip damage, stops that light screen, gets the Geomancy anyway, and can reposition from there with an unhindered Xerneas coming out from turn 1. But actually, you know, we may just see it switch out, take advantage of, you know, his position, and actually we see the Xerneas switching out instead. So
well, there was a switch out, and it's that Rayquaza jumping onto the field here, hoping to avoid that Nihilego, which could potentially be in the back. It's getting out and a little bit of a safer switch in here. Tapu Fini is going to be taking the fake out this time, as the Incineroar actually goes straight for a U-turn into the opposing Incineroar there. So there was no fake out coming out into Xerneas potentially to stop the Geomancy. Flavio just wants to reposition up as well, and now that Rayquaza is on the field, I wouldn't be surprised to see that Nihilego joining.
Well, potentially, yeah. I mean, Flavio, as we said, has got to be quite careful of that Rayquaza. We don't know the speed tiers. We don't know if Loïc has trained his Rayquaza to be max speed or somewhere in the middle. So we don't know if that's going to be play a factor in the rest of the game. But really great adjustment from Loïc there, not trying to go for that Geomancy first thing. He's saving his resources for later.
Yes.
Right? We saw his resources. He set up that Geomancy, it got taken away, and then he couldn't set it up again. So really good adjustment there from Loïc. He's decided that actually in this game he's going to save a bit for later and put some pressure on with that Rayquaza that's now doing a little bit of Mega Evolving. Yeah, for the first time in this game, we're going to see a Mega Evolution, and it's going to be that Rayquaza bringing the Delta Stream to the field. So he's going to be taking a little bit of less damage from some of these moves that affect flying types so strongly. And it is going to go straight for a Dragon Ascent as well. This Rayquaza is not messing around. It got booted off the field so quickly in game 1, but it's here, Mega Evolved, and going for a powerful Dragon Ascent into that Xerneas. Going to do just
not quite enough to do 50% here, and will, of course, have its stats reduced. So I was going to say, if Xerneas is going for no Geomancy and just going for a Moonblast, which exactly it is, it's going to pick up a clean one-hit KO against that Rayquaza, thanks to the boost that it got there. So Flavio playing an absolute blinder of a game there with that Xerneas.
Yeah, absolutely. And following up with the Icy Wind that we saw in the last game, and just saying, you know what, if you switch, I'm going to have some pressure. If you don't switch, I'm going to have some pressure. So, you know, really good play there from Flavio to make sure. And, you know, let's touch on this Xerneas from Flavio's side of the field. That was a full power.
It was powerful, yeah.
Yeah, from a Mega Rayquaza. That's strong, and you can see how little damage it did to Flavio's, and even the, again, unhindered Flare Blitz from Incineroar coming out into it, not even doing that much damage. It's still got about 25% left.
Yes.
So, yeah, really, really bulky Xerneas here.
Yeah, I think Flavio's really trained the Xerneas to perfection, particularly in this game at the moment. It's really hanging on, and not going for that Geomancy was such a good play. He's now free to go for it again later in the game if he wants to. The Ditto, of course, has come into the field. We have not mentioned that adorable Ditto coming in, and has brought a Xerneas in for Loïc, while he also brings in another Xerneas. So as this is one of my favorite Pokemon, I'm very happy right now to see all these Pokemon on the field. There's Fairy Aura everywhere. But the Xerneas on Flavio's side has gone for a Protect as a Dazzling Gleam comes out from the Ditto on Loïc's side here. So not going to be dealing any damage against that Xerneas, but still does a huge amount thanks to a critical hit to the opposing Tapu Fini. That could come in crucial later on, but Tapu Fini wisely going for a Light Screen as it's facing down against both of these special attackers. So potentially the critical hit won't matter too much now.
No, possibly not. And I was just thinking as that Ditto came onto the field and then the other Xerneas came in, it's like, what's better than one Xerneas? Two Xerneas. What's better than two Xerneas? Let's have three. Why not? So, you know, good play from Loïc here. He's taken advantage of that Xerneas that Flavio's trained so well, actually taken it onto his side of the field and brought his own Xerneas. So lots of pressure that Loïc's putting up, and that Light Screen is going to play a big part in how Flavio's going to be able to deal with two Xerneas. Obviously, Loïc can still has the access to the Geomancy, so potentially could have a boosted Xerneas and a non-boosted Xerneas going into the next few turns. As we see Flavio, probably quite wisely, bringing out his Xerneas for that Incineroar.
Well, yeah, it's going to be the Incineroar back on the field here. Going to get some fake-out pressure just to try and stop some of the damage coming out here. But, of course, the Tapu Fini will still have access to Haze if that's something that the actual Xerneas on Loïc's side wants to go for. It's going to be a Dazzling Gleam from one and a Moonblast from the other, really targeting down this Tapu Fini that survives on 5 hit points. Loïc knows that before he wants to get that Geomancy up with the Xerneas that can click that with the item, it needs to remove this Tapu Fini. You want to remove that threat of Haze. Tapu Fini going for just another Icy Wind. So really great play from him there, getting his own Xerneas off the field to be able to bring it back in at a speed advantage. No matter who clicks Geomancy then, you're going to be the fastest. Yeah,
absolutely. And a really quite a brave play there from Flavio, saying, you know what, Loïc has this opportunity to Geomancy, and, you know, if I don't hit the Haze button, maybe that Geomancy goes up and it could be in a tough spot. But correctly predicting that Loïc wasn't going to fall for that after falling for it in game one. And so, you know, really taking the most advantage of the turn, getting that Icy Wind, and now, you know, we could see a follow-up Icy Wind, completely negate a Xerneas Geomancy there. We've got the Fake Out in play. You know, obviously Ditto not holding a Power Herb, not going to be able to use that Geomancy. But it actually just switches out instead. Yeah,
switches right out as the Incineroar jumps back onto the field. So if you're Loïc right now, you probably are wanting to try and stall out this Light Screen as best you can. So being able to switch your Incineroar in and out and keep using that Fake Out could be critical for him later in the game to try and get that advantage back up. But one Pokemon you do still have to worry about is that Nihilego, as Flavio reveals his 4th and final Pokemon here. That is definitely going to threaten all the Pokemon on Loïc's side of the field as the Fake Out goes into the opposing Xerneas. Misty Terrain has also left the field. The only thing that really could affect now would be poisons and burns, but he's still got his Tapu Fini in the back if he wants to reset it.
Yeah, indeed. And actually, I quite like the adjustment from Loïc here, bringing that Ditto instead of the Whimsicott from game one, because actually, you know, if his own Rayquaza isn't on the field anymore and it gets taken down like it did in game one and game two earlier in the game, actually he's got that opportunity to copy maybe the Nihiligo, put some pressure on the Tapu Fini and the Incineroar, maybe get some special attack boosts and really run through Flavio's team.
I think quite wisely as well, Loïc did target down that Nihiligo with the fake out, allowing the Xerneas to get that Geomancy up. It's actually perfect timing for Loïc, because that Tapu Fini's off the field as well. You don't have to worry about haze at this stage. You just kind of have to work around the light screen. And try and get as much damage off as possible as you can into that Nihiligo. Incineroar, of course, still will be dealing that damage, but the big threat is that Ultra Beast on the field. Incineroar on Flavio's side, going to go for another U-turn though, so potentially for Loïc, we could be seeing that Tapu Fini coming back in that he's going to have to face against.
Yeah, absolutely, but actually, you know, that Tapu Fini's probably in range for a Moonblast now from Loïc's Xerneas now being boosted up, and even with the light screen, it's probably not going to make enough difference. The big thing will be what's the move on Flavio's Nihiligo. Could it be running that clear smog? And if so, he's got two ways potentially to actually just take away that Xerneas Geomancy again.
Yeah, that's a really good point there, Ben. You've got two options then to shut down Xerneas. And it's sort of Loïc's kind of last cry here is to be able to get the Xerneas dealing out some damage as well. He's got the Ditto if he fancies another Xerneas as well.
Absolutely.
But if you're facing down against two Pokemon that not only could potentially negate all your stats, but you've got Nihiligo applying such offensive pressure as well. And Tapu Fini isn't really going to mind taking sort of neutral fairy type moves necessarily. But Tapu Fini leaves the field as quickly as it joined, as that Xerneas jumps back in for Flavio. It does have quite low HP at the moment, so Flavio does have to be careful here. First of all, it's going to take a Moonblast and will be KO'd, so Flavio will be losing that restricted Pokemon that he's got there, but it's going to still have the Nihiligo on the field going for that Z move, Ben.
Continental Crush coming out again. Probably going to be targeting that Incineroar, and really clever player here actually, because we know that Imposter Ditto, when it comes in, it copies the Pokemon opposite it.
Exactly, the boost and everything.
Exactly. So Flavio correctly identifying that actually he's on the side of the Xerneas and he wants to stay on the side of the Xerneas. So if he gets this Beast Boost from the Incineroar, the Ditto comes in, maybe copies something like a Tapu Fini. He's not going to be able to actually do anything again. Loïc's not going to be able to do anything to this Nihiligo. He's not going to be able to have the Ditto on that side of the field to copy those boosts that Nihiligo has gained from this knockout. So really, really clever play there to take full advantage of that Nihiligo and take away the advantage that Ditto brings to the field.
Yes, no, I absolutely love that. He's basically pinned Loïc into a corner here. As you said, he's down to his last two Pokemon now, that Xerneas and a Ditto. The Ditto is forced now to copy whatever Pokemon comes in on that left-hand side of Flavio's. He has not got the option to switch it out, reset it maybe to a more favorable Pokemon like the Nihiligo that's getting up those boosts. Of course, if it goes into Tapu Fini, it's going to be able to still be weakened by any moves from this Nihiligo. It's going to be able to still deal out some Sludge Bombs. And again, even if it copies the Incineroar,
we've just got that Power Gem, haven't we?
Yeah, exactly. And yes, you might get, you know, a little fake out off, but in the long term, this Nihiligo is sitting so proud here on the field. It is going to be the Tapu Fini though, so Loïc does have access to things like, I don't believe we've seen the fourth move. We've seen Light Screen, Haze, and Icy Wind, but not the fourth one.
So far, yeah. I mean, we see a lot of Nature's Madness on Tapu Fini. Could be something like that Moonblast, which gained popularity in the World Championships recently in DC this year. So, you know, there's a few options there, but actually Tapu Fini's only needed 3 of its moves, and they've all been really, really good in this set. So, you know, actually what you said earlier where Flavio has the option of what to bring in. If he brought in that Incineroar, as you correctly said, he has that option to fake out. So really good from Flavio, just making sure that there was no options there for Loïc to come back into the game.
Exactly, and it's going to be the Sludge Bomb coming out from that Nihiligo into Tapu Fini thanks to the boost, able to pick up a clean KO. So Loïc is not even able to utilize that Ditto that had become the Fini at all as Nihiligo gets another Beast Boost up. Of course, Flavio now has that Incineroar in the back. He can bring that in, go for Fake Out, go for Sludge Bomb, and eventually just be able to take out this Xerneas. So I think Flavio really did well positioning his Pokemon in this game.
Yeah, fantastic play from Flavio. It's easy to see how he's managed to make it to the top cut in so many different tournaments across the EU and further afield in the US and other tournaments. So, you know, he's always been able to suppress that Xerneas Geomancy, and that's the really important thing in this format, especially when you're playing another team like Xerneas Rayquaza pairing, where the name of the game is get that geomancy. So, yeah, really great play there from Flavio.
Yeah, it's always the case. When you have Xerneas on your team, you need to get its geomancy up. It gives you so much offensive pressure and speed and all kinds of amazing things in VGC. So it's definitely one of your main goals that you want to get set up. And if you were Flavio here, there wasn't too much on Loïc's side that could really have stopped you from doing that. A potential taunt maybe from the Whimsicott could have shut that down. But again, it only kind of prevents it a couple of turns. There isn't really too much of a threat to the actual Xerneas itself from the Whimsicott. Incineroar here going for a powerful Flare Blitz into the opposing Xerneas, just going to do a little bit more damage there. But it really is going to be that Nihilego later on that will be able to pick up the KO.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, you know, I think Loïc did a really good job with the tools that he had.
Yes.
I think, you know, it would have been nice to see him really utilize that Rayquaza a little bit more. We only saw one attack in 2 games, and that was a little bit of a shame from that side of the field. But actually, you know, if you look at the composition of Loïc's team compared to Flavio's, and you look at that Nihilego, which has put in so much work in both of these games, actually you see that little cheeky clear smog coming out there. We knew it was there. It was coming out.
Yeah. Interesting he chose to reveal it, though, at this sort of stage in the game.
Yeah, and you know, it may be a hint at of what the other moves are. I'm not sure we saw a Sludge Bomb come out there at all in the game. So, you know.
Yeah, we did see one Sludge Bomb. It went into Incineroar, I believe, in the
yes,
previous game.
Yes.
So, yeah, interesting they decided to reveal that Clear Smog towards the end. Maybe he just wanted to end the game with a little bit of flair. But, of course, this round 1 winner, you can see him there on your screen, is Flavio del Pidio. Like, what a masterful game there. And then, unfortunately for Loïc, Nihilego was his undoing. I'm not too sure if there was anything really on his team that would have enabled him to be able to sort of work around that Pokemon.
Yeah, again, it's just this Rayquaza. It comes down to how they pair up. And actually, Flavio not bringing his own Rayquaza as a target for Loïc to copy that Rayquaza on Flavio's side of the field and take advantage of that, because, you know, you can have 2 Xerneas, but you can also have 2 Rayquaza. And, you know, I think that would have been the better call for him there, but Flavio not giving him that opportunity. And as we said earlier, really positioning so well to always keep the pressure up, always keep that light screen up, or, you know, pressure with that haze or that icy wind. So, you know, just really, really solid play. There was no holes anywhere across, and, you know, Loïc played well. He did as much as he can, but, you know, when you're playing against that kind of team composition, under the hands of that kind of player, you know, it's hard to do anything at all.
Yeah, it certainly is. But it was a great game to be able to showcase here in round 1 at the Cologne Regional Championships. I certainly love seeing that Ditto on the field, transforming to the Xerneas. There's always kind of a nice little running joke, particularly in a format like Ultra. We've got so many restricteds. When you have a Ditto, you technically have 3 on your team. Yeah,
absolutely. And I've seen games earlier in this year where, you know, I think it was in Sun Series, one of the local tournaments that I went to, and I just looked over someone's shoulder and saw someone's game, and there were 4 Ubers on the field, both of them running Ditto. Both of them managed to copy another Uber. So, you know, that was really good to see. Really, probably quite a close game as well.
Yeah,
quite interesting.
Quite intense.
You know, you don't really know what's going to hit you when you've got 4 of those restricted Pokemon on the field.
And the item on a Ditto can be quite elusive as well.
Certainly
We sometimes
can.
saw it having a Fairy MZ, so it could copy an opposing boosted Xerneas and then go for the Twinkle Tackle, which was always quite interesting.
Yeah.
We will have to wait for some... behind the scenes, you're going to see a lot of these dances going off with the Z moves. We will have to get confirmation if there's time for an interview, but we will be kicking it to a short break, and then we will either have the interview or we'll come back with our next casters ready for round 2, so don't go anywhere.